There's plenty of room.
Okay. Love your t-shirt.
Thank you. I love yours too.
Thank you.
And
Wow.
Oh, thanks.
I'm gonna break this.
Oh, wait, are we doing the same thing? What?
Y'all.
This
When did this happen?
This is wild.
You just realize
That's
that right now.
Magic exchange.
Nerd Reactor, roll out.
You guys have been in the Resident Evil game for a while, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like every single one of you, but in different ways. Like either through more of the video game side, and then through the movies or animated shows.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is kind of like crossing everything together. So what was that like for each of you?
Mashing it all together.
Yeah.
I think it was just a really satisfying integration. When we got kind of like scripts and stuff, I just remember texting both of these people and being like, "Oh my gosh, it's happening!"
Yeah.
With Stephanie and I, blah, blah, blah. Stephanie, wow. Steph, I'm using Steph today. Steph and I really had fun being like, "Oh my gosh, this is happening! Oh my gosh, this is happening!" And I think that just general like culmination of everything is just as exciting to us as it is to the fans.
Oh yeah, and usually with the voice acting stuff, you are solo inside a booth. Is that the same thing with this, or do you get to be together?
For this particular one, the production unfortunately did require us to be separate for the recording process.
Yeah.
But because we all know each other through different facets, it was super exciting to like catch in with each other and text and essentially all nerd out about what we were able to do together, and then now coming to watch the final product has been just a really, really cool culmination.
Oh yeah, and this is just just seeing all the 4 characters on the screen, just teaming up, because most of the time, Claire, Jill, Chris, and Leon, they're separate, but sometimes they're kind of intermingling. But here, all of them, 4 of them together. So what was that like, just seeing that?
I loved it. I've been wanting it for so long, honestly. Like, it's one of those things where, and not to be like a girl about it, but it was kind of neat to have other badass women alongside as well. That was kind of neat to see, and I feel like we had never really seen everyone together because we kind of, have been able to like put the spotlight on whoever's story it is. But I think it's amazing that spotlight is really on everybody, although we're dealing with a lot of Jill's poor tragic like, trauma that's going on, but everyone's important and everybody matters and everyone has a place, and I think it was really, really beautifully done that every single person matters and everyone's strength matters, and how everyone fills in the gaps where the other one maybe can't.
Totally agree. I think that's such a good point on like trying to bring this many characters together. It just can be challenging. It can be challenging to give everyone the time that they deserve, especially when each of these characters have been through so much individually. And we give a lot of head nod to like Jill and Leon getting to meet, but this is the first time that we're seeing Claire and Jill too.
Oh, and us.
Like we never talk about it because it seems like there's been other moments, but we haven't seen them on screen together. So the fact that we get to see them on screen, and I personally, in this movie, I love Leon and Jill have this really epic moment. Claire and Jill have this very like,
hey, how's it going?
It's a Tuesday.
Yeah, it just feels really familiar, and it's such an iconic payoff for so much. Like, wait, do they like know? They must know each other.
There's a story there.
Yeah.
They already had yeah.
And so the movie's set in Alcatraz. So when you're figuring out like, the concept for this, it's going to be set here with zombies. Was the initial reaction like, this is kind of cool? We're trapped inside an island. What's going to happen next?
I mean, Alcatraz historically is a name that immediately evokes the idea of isolation and escapability. Mm-hmm. And so you combine that with the terrors of any sort of letter plus virus. What could possibly go wrong? So yeah, I mean, it's we've gone large global scale, we've gone like small mansion scale. This definitely brings you to a space where you're immediately like, this is going to be a very unique spin on the idea of horror, terror, and being locked within a very, very well fortified area. So no, it was a really cool kind of new take on that, especially putting all these characters together in that space and being like, all right, now are they gonna stay there the whole time? Are they gonna be able to are there secret spaces to go to? Are they gonna go into some of the weird history of Alcatraz, or is it just gonna be like crazy monsters? Well, how about a little bit of all of that? So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I think what I really enjoyed about this was the villain, where you kind of understand where the villain's coming from. I don't want to name names yet.
Yep.
But watching it, you see like the history, because they dive into like Resident Evil 2, and you fast forward to now and kind of just figuring things out. So what was that like, just having these characters play opposite that villain?
I love that. I think it we kind of talked about it a little bit. It brings such a dynamic between the fact that you've kind of got the heroes that are also like, yeah, we went through it too. It was also hard for us, and we're not trying to slaughter the world. We're trying to save it kind of energy, but you get a lot of perspective, maybe not empathy, but maybe a little more understanding of like why these villains are the way they are, and at least a little picture into their trauma. There's been a lot of like, that's the theme, just like how people cope with trauma.
Yeah.
Which I think is, but I think it's really crucial then, because it's a very well written villain if you can relate to them. And if you can find your human side in them as well, because then that's not just a 2-dimensional, you're like, oh, that's a person. It's a person that went through something. That's a person that chose this direction. And you're like, huh, maybe I wouldn't, but I totally get it. And then I think that's kudos on, the writing, which is a big deal. So, but this film is going to be intense, but it's also very human.
Very fun.
Very, very, yeah. So, which is great, because we need the highs and we need the lows and come back. So,
Really, we just need more empathy for the lickers. I just think everybody needs to understand them at a deeper level, and we would love them a little more.
Oh yeah, so that
can do different things. You can't escape ever.
Yeah, because there's a scene with the Lakers where you feel like, here we go again, but there's
but it's more than
I want to talk about because they're heroes, each character that you're playing, and then at the beginning there's a part where I'm like, can they help these people in Alcatraz? And I don't think it's a spoiler, right? Because at the beginning, you're gonna figure out like the island's infected, and I'm like, the people are.
The island's infected?
No way.
What?
There's infection
Did that
in the Resident Evil game?
Apparently.
No.
Guys,
Shocking.
I need to rethink this.
I wasn't paying
Can we
attention when we were recording.
All right, spoilers. Well, part when I'm watching it, I'm like, I think I can save them. No, it's not happening. And then they tried. But I felt bad, so I don't know if you were reading the script and you're like, there goes that.
Well, I think that's a recurring theme through a lot of the Resident Evil games, is the still enduring and pushing in the face of possible, and in some cases, absolute failure. And it's not ever at the expense of the hero feeling like they did wrong, but they're doing the best they can in a situation where they can't win and help everybody, and that doesn't mean it's not worth trying. And I think there's a lot of the story there of like, some circumstances you shouldn't keep yourself from trying to save people and help people, but then there's a survivor's guilt that comes out of the circumstance of realizing that you couldn't help everybody. And that's kind of what makes the villainous and antagonistic forces so frustrating and evil in these projects, is people that are selfishly causing scenarios where so many people are hurt, so people are killed, and the heroes just do their best when they can at the end of the day and try and live with the fact that they sometimes can't save everybody, and that sucks.
It's interesting because that just brought me back to so the first time Claire loses somebody because she couldn't get there fast enough, it was an RE2. And I remember she pulls, him out. The Elliot was the cop, and he just in half. Sorry, spoilers if you haven't played RE2 by now. I'm sorry, but I remember asking hey, this is important. So I was like, can I say something else? And I remember saying, I'm so sorry, because it was that feeling. I didn't get there fast enough. I didn't, you know what I mean? And so it's that very interesting, which each character I think probably relates to it differently, but I think for Claire, maybe that's why she constantly tries to help everybody, because it's almost like this feeling I could have just done a little bit more. But what if I just, same with when every time she loses somebody, I think she does kind of affect her character, you know, and it's really interesting because I have no idea if she's ever coped with any of her stuff, really. So, yeah.
Resident Evil Survivors Guild.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and I want to dive deeper into that, like when you're able to just count into the character and you want to add more to it. Was that the case for this one? Because usually, like, you know, when it's like an animated movie, like done in Japan, and you do like a dubbing. So with this, did you get more of input on the different dialogues?
There's like a few moments here and there that I can remember where we like adjust, but we were pretty locked into the story that was being told and had been filmed and the animation that had been worked on. So, you know, I was pretty happy with what was in front of me. So it wasn't like a lot of adjustment on our part. We were more coming in to support and uplift and bring it to life. So little words here and there, maybe a little this, little that.
Things. Yeah, I think it's more so like because we were pretty locked into picture. It was only if you weren't able to see like our mouth moving or something, then I'd be like, oh my gosh, this would be like, you know, kind of like a smart alecky thing to say. You know what I mean? Can I inject this? And if there was moments to be allowed to do that, then yeah. Or like maybe it's even just with a sound. Right? She's like, I don't approve. You know what I mean? Like, all you got to do it is with a sound, and that's it, you know? And so, I think there's moments of that. But as a whole, I think the writing was very solid. So, there was not really, not to say that the other ones, they've always been solid, but there was more room to be able to do that. And with film, it's a little bit, you have so much time, and so you have to stay with the story. So, yeah.
And the poster, right in the middle, we see Jill at the center. So
look at that.
I don't think we have spoiled to say she has more of a prominent role in this movie.
Yeah.
And Nicole, like with Jill, she gets to have, I think, some iconic moments that Resident Evil 3 fans will be like, this is Jill. This is the Jill I remember, and she gets to have that, especially the third act.
Yeah, I think so for sure. I mean, I was just as excited as everyone else. I've also been like, where is she? How's she doing? Like, what's happening? And I think the way that this film gets to explore sort of what's happening for her and where she's been, and really one of my favorite parts is her reintegration into what it means to be part of a team. And I think that's really important for her and for her healing and everything in between. So it's a joy to kind of get to continue to see her story evolve.
Oh yeah. I think the last question I want to ask is just in terms of the future of the Resident Evil franchise for each of you. Let's say video game wise, do you think we'll ever have something with Leon, Chris, Jill, Claire together?
Y'all ready to do this all at the same time?
I mean, from a narrative standpoint, I think it'd be really cool. Whether or not I'm part of that, I think Nick has done a wonderful job of taking the torch of Leon in the games and really kind of brings such a wonderful, fresh energy to it, and I love seeing what he's doing with it. So I'm happy that I've had the opportunity to come back for the film and do that, but I would love to see all those characters come together in some really cool, epic narrative following the games as well. That's what I'd like to see.
I'm curious how you would do that, though. Like, would you, like, choose your character? Like, I'd be very curious, you know? Or would you follow one character and then everyone's in the world of that character? No idea.
I'm just giving you a big shrug.
Yeah.
That's what I meant. All at the same time. I don't know. I'd be just as excited as anyone else.
Super cool.
It'll be really fun to see what they do next.